Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our class, Cross-Cultural Counseling. Today's topic is on race and ethnicities, and I will be dividing the class into 3 segments. In our first segment, I will discuss about the differences between race and ethnicity, followed by an explanation about ethnic identity. And in the second segment, we will talk about oppression. And segment 3 will be, there will be an example of one ethnic group in Malaysia that I would like to share. So, let us start with this first segment. Okay. The term race, it is actually a term that originates as a biological construct. It relates to the grouping of population by their difference on biological measures. So diverse category of people were actually classified into race based on their skin pigmentation and morphology, their features and their build. So this construct, race, was actually introduced by Carolus Linnaeus in 1806, and he was actually the first scientist to classify the human species, the Homo sapien, into 4 categories of white, red, yellow, and black. So you can see people talking about other people who are white, black, especially in the US lah. And they are actually stereotyped phenotypically and behaviorally. Okay, however, later on, race became a social construct. By the late of 20th century, race has been redefined as a social construct rather than solely biological in nature. So people do not see other people based on their skin color anymore, their physical appearance. No, that is not acceptable anymore because there are new findings from research that shows race is actually not something biological. So without a biological foundation, race now only exists as a societal mechanism of classification. And although genetic research continue to destroy the reality of race as a valid biological construct, our society's perception of race continue to divide us and cripple us as a nation. We can have a look here. Let's see if I can open this and share with you.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy and hard to read. It undermines the writer's message, and the word choice is bland. Grammarly's cutting-edge technology helps you craft compelling, understandable writing.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
You may think you know exactly what race you are, but how would you prove it if someone disagreed with you? The fact is, even though race drives a lot of social and political outcomes, race isn't real. One of the first people to attempt to categorize humans according to race was a German scientist around 1776. He came up with 5 different groups according to physical appearance and geographic origin of their ancestors. Americans of European descent eagerly bought into this type of thinking around the same time. Some historians have said the idea that there were different races helped them resolve the contradiction between a natural right to freedom and the fact of slavery. If whites were their own distinct category, then they could feel a lot better about denying freedom to people who they labeled black and decided were fundamentally different. But as political priorities change, definitions of race in America adjust right along with them. For example, if you were of Mexican birth or ancestry in the United States in 1929, you were considered white. Then, the 1930 census changed that to non-white to limit immigration. Later, when the U.S. needed to increase its labor force during World War II, these people were switched back to white. And what it took to be black once varied so wildly throughout the country, from 1/4 to 1/16 to the infamous 1/10 of African ancestry, that people could actually change races just by crossing state lines. Then, suddenly, in 2000, the government decided that Americans could be more than one race and added a multiracial category to the census. This has left many Americans scratching their heads when it comes to selecting who they are. As many as 6.2% of census respondents selected some other race in a 2010 survey. The idea that someone might look one way and identify another way, or that they might be really hard to place in a racial category, is not new. This is why there was a public debate about whether MSNBC's Karen Finney could say she was black, or how we can't even agree on the racial label assigned to the President of the United States. Of course, many people feel their racial identity is very clear and very permanent, but the fact that some people have changed theirs and that no one can really argue with them shows how shaky the very idea of race is. This is all because there isn't a race chromosome in our DNA that people can point to. It simply doesn't exist. When the medical community links race to health outcomes, it's really just using race as a substitute for other factors, such as where your ancestors came from, or the experiences of people who may have been put in the same racial group as you. Dorothy Roberts explains that sickle cell anemia is a prime example of this. The disease is linked to areas with high rates of malaria, which includes some parts of Europe and Asia in addition to Africa. It's not actually about race at all. This, of course, does not mean that the concept of race isn't hugely important in our lives. The racial categories to which we're assigned can determine real-life experiences, they can drive political outcomes, and they can even make the difference between life and death. But understanding that racial categories are made up can give us an important perspective on where racism came from in the first place.
Right. So that's what that is, yeah? Now you can see how race has become something really confusing, yeah? In this US society especially. Okay, now, ethnicity. Ethnicity, on the other hand, it refers to one's socio-cultural heritage based on the commonalities represented in such dimension as collective history, religion, nationality, regional origin, language, and others. Yeah? Ethnicity, it actually comprises the word originate from Greek, yeah? Which is nation, yeah? And it was actually used to distinguish particular national group not identified with nation as well, such as the Jews or the Gypsies, before Islam. Okay, let's have another look with this video. Okay.
Race, ethnicity, and nationality are three terms that get thrown around a lot, and all too often they're used interchangeably, ignored, or just used incorrectly. But each of these words actually has a very distinct meaning, and I'm going to talk about them today using my favorite candy, jelly beans. Let's start with race. Now, you may have heard someone say, race is a human construct, and that's true. Race is a mode of categorization that's based on physical appearance. So in the case of jelly beans, race is color. Because race is based on appearance, to some degree it's ascribed, meaning that people are assigned into racial categories based on what other people see. Even if somebody could be mistaken for a certain racial category, it can still apply to them. These categories are fluid, and our ideas of racial groupings change all the time. It's also important to remember that a person can have parents with two different racial backgrounds. The population of the world is becoming increasingly mixed. But even a person with multiple races will still ultimately belong to a racial category themselves, whether or not it's the same as their parents. Race is a huge factor in daily life, but it isn't the whole picture. The term race does not capture the complexities of ethnicity. Ethnicity refers to the ethnic group or groups that a person belongs to. It's a part of a person's heritage and ancestry. In the case of jelly beans, ethnicity is like the flavor. Two people who are in the same racial group can still have very different ethnicities. For example, all of these are red, but this one is cinnamon and this one is cherry. Two people in the same racial group can and often do have very different backgrounds. It's important to note that there are some groups who are unable to trace their specific ethnic heritage because of things like slavery, assimilation, and genocide. Ethnicity is a huge part of identity formation and development, but it's still not the same as nationality. The word nationality refers to someone's national origin, the country where they hold citizenship. For jelly beans, it's like the bag that a bean comes from. People of the same race or ethnicity can come from all different nations, like the watermelon bean that's in Camo Mix and Kids Mix, or the lemon lime bean that's in all three. And nationality is flexible. If a person immigrates, their nationality can change. People can have dual citizenship or sometimes no citizenship at all. So, now you know. As a quick recap, race is a mode of categorization based on physical appearance, like the color of a jelly bean. Ethnicity is a person's actual ethnic background based on their ancestry, like the flavor of a jelly bean. And nationality is the place where a person holds citizenship, which is like the jelly bean's bag. Now that you know the difference, you can have a much more comprehensive conversation about identity issues. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video because I totally enjoyed eating these jelly beans afterwards.
Okay, so thank you, Jelly Beans, for helping us to understand the difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality. Now, let's move to ethnic identity. Ethnic identity is actually the extent to which one identify with a particular ethnic group. Yeah, it refers to one's sense of belonging to an ethnic group and the part of one's thinking, perception, feelings, and behavior that is due to ethnic group membership. Yeah, so basically, in short, ethnic group is actually a group of people whose members identify with one another through a common heritage, which might consist of common language, a common culture, and a tradition of common ancestry. However, okay, we want to also see how we develop our ethnic identity. The first one, ethnic awareness. Ethnic awareness is understanding one's own and other groups' ethnicity lah. Okay, the second one, ethnic self-identification is actually the label used for one's own group. Ethnic attitude is the feeling about own and other groups, while ethnic behavior are the behavior patterns specific to an ethnic group. These are components in the ethnic identity. Finney, he is a scholar which actually come up with this ethnic identity development model. So, according to Finney, people will go through these 3 stages. Yeah, the first one is diffusion. Yeah, this is when people have not yet explored feeling, attitude towards ethnicity. They have lack of interest, and the majority of individuals do not express preference for majority group. The second one is search. This one is when one have increasing awareness and wants to explore and learn more about their ethnic group, ethnic background. And this is the stage where it's really emotionally intense. Later on, the third stage is achievement. This is when people have already accepted who they are. Yeah, the emotion when they are in this stage are already moderated. They are calm and they are secure, and they feel okay with who they are, their ethnic identity. So okay, maybe now you can actually try to reflect on your own life journey. How did you know which ethnicity you are? Did you go to these processes from diffusion and then go to search and then achievement? When did you start to search about your ethnic identity? What are the processes involved? These are things that you can think about. So here's a homework for you. You can go to this link. Yeah, it's one of the videos in YouTube, and have a look at the mixed identities that we have in Malaysia. Yeah. Okay, students, this is, I guess, the end of our segment. Overall, we now know about ethnicity, the difference between ethnicity and race, ethnic identity, and also Finney's ethnic identity development model. So I'll see you in the next segment, inshallah. Take care.